Italian debt, 10-year, currently trading 276 points above Germany's. Commissioner, do you think Italy's current debt trajectory is sustainable?
We want to reduce the Italian debt whilst it's raising today due to the fact that Italy is not controlling its deficit. It was not the case in 2018, it's not the case in 2019, it shouldn't be the case in 2020. And that's why this morning we delivered what we call a report on the basis of Article 126.3 of the treaty, saying that at this stage and without further data or further measures, an EDP, excessive deficit procedure for debt, could be envisaged. And as you said, it's just the first step of a very complicated process. We have not decided to open this EDP. We are not even pre-decided, but we launch a process that could lead to it if there is no correction in the data and in the measures that the Italian government needs to take.
Commissioner, does it seem slightly counterintuitive to fine a country that has high debt?
We're not talking about fines. Fines are not mandatory, and we're not at this stage at all. The stage of sanctions will or would take months and months. No. What we want to do is to convince the Italian authorities that reducing debt is in Italy's interest and in the Eurozone's interest. When a country has such a high debt, first it's weakened, then it lacks credibility and loses credibility, and third, it cannot finance its public policies. Each euro you dedicate to reimbursing your public debt is a euro less for security, for developing economy, for education, for health, for justice, for security. So basically, what we want is to convince the Italian authorities that they need to do something else and to do things differently. Let's not talk about fines now. That's not my way of handling stuff. We want to incentivize, we want to convince, we want to lead to a common future. We want also common rules to be obeyed, because these rules are obeyed and implemented by all Eurozone member states, and Italy is among the prominent member states in the Eurozone.
And you gave Italy a pass at the end of last year, so I guess the idea is you can't continue to give it a pass constantly. If Italy adopts a confrontational stance to the EU, what would you do at that point? At the moment, it doesn't look like Italy has much of a choice, given that its government is basically non-functioning.
I'm not in the confrontational mood. I think that talking about a confrontation between Brussels and Rome, between the Commission and the Italian government, or between Mr. Salvini and myself, makes no sense. If a decision is taken, and we're not yet there, it has to be taken by the Council. That means by the member states, the finance ministers of the member states. And Italy will have to convince not only the Commission, but its member states, the other member states, that it's doing things the right way. And so let's not imagine that kind of confrontation. Let's not play this game. This game is a lose-lose. It's a lose for Italy, it's lose for the EU, it's lose for the Eurozone, it's lose for the world economy. Let's try to find common ways of addressing this very serious issue of the increase in Italian deficits and debt.
Well, what would you recommend, Commissioner? Because the people of Italy elected their politicians. Some of those politicians were elected on the promise of not raising taxes or putting a VAT tax on goods. Therefore, their hands are tied by their constituents. And there is no obvious way for Italy to reduce its debt right now. Or is there? What would you recommend?
Again, I'm not commenting on Italy's political parties or democratic choices. They've elected parties, some of them I don't like that much, because I'm not a populist, not from the extreme right, but that's their choice. They also can choose the economic policy that they want to lead. But this must be made compliant with common rules. My point is not to say whether this or that tax choice is appropriate. What I'm looking at is the balance, the budget balance. Does this lead to a lower deficit? Does this lead to a lower debt? For the time being, what I see is that the policy that has been led until now leads to more deficit and more debt and to the non-respect of our common rules. And well, let's try to make things compatible. Objectively, it's hard to say that reducing taxes a lot by billions of euros reduces deficits.
Commissioner, would you like the financial markets to do your work for you? I appreciate what you said earlier on in this interview, that you don't want to push fines towards Italy. Nevertheless, a showdown has started and the gap between Germany and Italian yields is rising. Do you expect the financial markets to do your work for you?
Certainly not. This morning in the press conference when I presented that report, I said that it's no use to speculate. I don't want anybody to speculate. I don't want political speculations about a confrontation. That's not the point. And I don't want, it's up to the markets to make their own decisions, but I wouldn't like to encourage market speculation. Today there is a fact. And our report is based on data, it's based on facts, it's based on objective reality. These facts show that for the time being, the deficits are not getting down in Italy and that the public debt is increasing whilst it's already very, very high. It's something like 131%, and without correction of the trajectory, it would be at 135% by next year. And this must not happen. So let's not speculate, let's act, and let's act together. That's what the Eurozone is about. We've got common rules, we're a club, yes. Everybody respects the rules, everybody goes in the right direction and in the same direction. And that's what I urge the Italian authorities to do, because that's their place at the heart of the Eurozone. This is the third largest economy of the Eurozone. It's a very important economy. And it's Italy's interest to be at the heart of the Eurozone.
Of course, and there is, I'm sure, a lot of goodwill on the part of the Prime Minister, you know, on the part of the Finance Minister, Mr. Salvini, and so on, you know, to stay in the European Union. But if Italy just cannot find those things to put in the 2020 budget that would bring down those levels and satisfy the requirements of Europe, what would be the end game, Commissioner?
Well, I'm never the what-if guy. I'm moving step by step. I'm quite sure that with political will, with a common approach, without any kind of artificial confrontational approach, we can find a common way. And I'm quite sure also that the 2020 budget, as well as the 2019 budget, could be with a better performance on as well nominal deficits and structural deficits, those deficits which are independent of growth. And it's a question, again, of political will and also of policy choices. You can build, it's possible to do that in Italy, a budget which is broadly compliant with the rules. And today we see that, no, they're not on this track. And we have to deliver this 126.3 report to say, at this stage, an EDP, an excessive deficit procedure for debt, would be warranted. But we urge, we would like the Italian authorities to take the necessary measures and action so that this is avoided. Obviously, that's where we are. And I think that is absolutely doable with a common political will to live together in the Eurozone with common rules that, again, are respected, implemented by all other member states. You know, the financial crisis was now 11 years ago. In 2011, there were 24 countries in excessive deficit procedure for deficit. Today, we have ended with this era because Spain was the last country to exit EDP. So let's go in that direction. Let's work together. It's possible.